interest in Wayside Publishing's Proficiency-Based series for French, EntreCultures. I'm excited to share an overview of our resources with you today. By the end of our time together, you will be able to explain how our products support proficiency-based programs and what the benefits of EntreCultures are for students and teachers. Ultimately, I hope you can envision using our products in your classroom with your students and understand that Wayside is here to support you and your professional growth. Today, I'm going to introduce you to EntreCultures from Wayside Publishing. Maybe many of you have not heard of Wayside or EntreCultures before. Well, I'm excited to be here today to show you how EntreCultures is a truly proficiency-based textbook series that will take your students from the novice low level in level 1 up through the intermediate mid-level of proficiency in level 3, and finally to the advanced low proficiency level in our AP textbook, Apprenons. Learning new methodologies, practices, and trying to provide great outcomes for your students at the same time can be challenging. You may not have learned your second or third language with a focus on proficiency. I know I didn't. You may be on your own path in teaching with proficiency, ranging from standing on the edge, weighing your options about jumping to proficiency-based instruction, or maybe you're in mid-air. Perhaps you're already landed on the other side and you're now excited to have a resource that will fully support you. Wherever you are in your path to teaching with proficiency, Wayside is here to support you. Because we've learned a lot since I was a student, national standards and the research that drives those are telling us we need to make that leap, a leap from a traditional style of teaching to one that's proficiency-based. So what exactly does that mean? Here you can see some of the key components to a proficiency-based program, which are all integral to our products. We help students to learn to use the language as opposed to just learning about it. We do that through having students having interactions in all three modes of communication, in real-world tasks, using authentic resources, as much as we can. Each unit is created with backwards design to focus on making sure that the students can answer the essential questions and meet the unit goals to be successful on their performance-based assessments. One last component of a proficiency-based program emphasizes not only communicative proficiency, but also intercultural proficiency as well, so that students can communicate appropriately when speaking with people from other cultures. EntreCultures, the series EntreCultures is truly proficiency-based. It offers a new approach to moving learners from novice to intermediate proficiency levels. As such, they are aligned to the World Readiness Standards for Language Learning, the proficiency guidelines, the performance descriptors, and the can-do statements. The series is also aligned with AP themes and includes practice and AP-style tasks starting at level 1. So let's take a closer look at EntreCultures. In designing EntreCultures, we applied the backwards design process beginning with the end in mind. That is, each unit builds what students will need to know and be able to do in order to demonstrate their communicative skills and cultural and content knowledge by the end of the unit. So we developed the essential questions and the learning goals. Then we built the summative assessment, an integrated performance assessment that we call GREV, which we'll take a look at in a minute. The unit activities, communicative tasks, and formative assessments were developed based on authentic resources with the integrated performance assessment, or GREV, in mind. Here you can see in level 1, unit 1, we have our essential questions at the top, questions that really get the students thinking about the content, not just about the vocabulary and the grammar. Who am I? How does what I do define who I am? Then we're going to have our unit objectives. Those are going to be based on the modes of communication and really grounded in the standards. And finally, we're going to have the GREV, which is our summative assessment, which is a performance-based assessment based on the three modes of communication, the interpretive, the interpersonal, and the presentational mode. And then we're going to give students all of the information they need, the vocabulary and the grammar and the cultural context to be successful at meeting those objectives and showing what they know in the summative assessment. One of the key features of the Wayside line of textbooks is our use of authentic resources in print, audio, and video format. Note that the definition of authentic resource is a material or materials created by a native speaker for native speakers and unedited for second language learners. This is important for language learning and gaining proficiency. In EntreCultures, we edit the task, not the resource. The resources not only provide high interest input for students that engages them in the language, but they also present the vocabulary and grammar in context. In fact, the actual vocabulary and language structures we focus on come from those authentic resources as well as all of our activities and assessments.
On est dans une salle avec un surveillant.
Bon, allez, vous sortez tous vos affaires, s'il vous plaît.
Aujourd'hui, c'est Barbara. Elle est trop cool, mais il ne faut pas trop l'embêter.
Those authentic resources are foundational to our program. As the name implies, EntreCultures positions learners to cultivate deeper cultural understandings, not simply knowledge of the 3 Ps, but new perspectives gleaned from engaging with authentic language and interacting in culturally appropriate ways in the real world. As the very name implies, EntreCultures positions learners to cultivate deeper cultural understandings, not simply knowledge of the 3 Ps. Our program goes beyond that. Interaction, authentic language, appropriate use, and demonstration of knowledge and understanding of the cultures. We get to this point by incorporating the World Readiness Standards, the 5 Cs, through the 3 modes of communication, interpretive, interpersonal, and presentational, so that students can know themselves, explore communities, theirs and others, and engage with the world, all in order to arrive at interculturality, or the I in the middle. And the process towards developing interculturality is intertwined with the process to build proficiency. Proficiency that's both communicative and intercultural. Such as our student video bloggers, real young people who agreed to videotape themselves commenting on themes that link to each of the units. Let's take a look at Kate, a video blogger from EntreCultures 1 who is from Togo.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Kate, j'ai 11 ans et demi. Je suis née le 2 juin 2006 au Togo. Je suis la seule fille pour mes parents. Voici ma famille, voici ma mère et mon père, et me voici au milieu.
We don't expect students to understand everything that the video blogger says or to comprehend everything they read, hear, or view in any of the many authentic resources they will be exposed to during the course of the series. But through our approach, we build an environment of exploration, curiosity, and risk-taking by providing comprehensible input and scaffolding to support students as they build their language proficiency. We don't simply give you a video, we scaffold learning activities that allow students to interpret and make sense of what they see and hear, as well as interact with the target vocabulary and grammar structures presented in the video blogger segment. The next section I want to talk about is how vocabulary is introduced in EntreCultures. Vocabulary is introduced in meaningful context. In other words, we don't just provide a list of vocabulary for students to memorize and repeat back to us. We embed the vocabulary in meaningful context, and by interacting with that context, students begin to acquire the target vocabulary. The essential vocabulary is presented in the Comment dit-on. Instructional strategies appendix gives ideas how to provide comprehensible input and learning activities within these structures. Learning activities will go from receptive to productive. An icon indicates the mode of communication or the skills area, and a compass icon indicates activities that are online. Notice the the can-do statements that are sprinkled throughout the textbook. These are wonderful opportunities to stop and have students reflect on how they are processing the language and what they are acquiring. There are also sections of additional vocabulary that is not essential to completing the tasks or meeting the objectives, but that will personalize language for students and allow them to advance their proficiency if they desire. We also have intercultural can-do statements and lots of ample vocabulary practice in the textbook and online. Next, we're going to look at how grammar is presented in all of our series. EntreCultures utilizes the discovery or inductive method for introducing grammar, so students generate and test hypotheses, which research shows allows them to reach higher levels of mastery. Let's take a look at how this high-powered strategy works. The section is called Découvrons, representing a process of noticing and creating meaning. This process has 5 steps. First, students are presented with a resource that has the structure in it. However, at this point, they're just processing it for meaning and understanding. Often this is done during the vocabulary section. Then students are given a copy of the text with the grammar structure highlighted. That could be in different colors, bolded, italicized, or an indicator of what to listen to for an audio resource. Students are then asked to read the captions and notice the bolded words. A series of questions help them make predictions, which they jot down on an organizer. Students then share their thoughts with a classmate, and then with the whole class in a think, pair, share format.
A key question we want you to be able to answer today is, how do verbs change to indicate who is doing the action?
We have videos that will support students in making and revising their hypothesis. Students will then continue to communicate with the structure in both the interpersonal and presentational modes through writing and speaking practice. You will notice there is a detailed grammar explanation on the sidebar for students to also use as they are processing the new topic and the new structure. Next, we're going to take a look at formative assessments. Remember, since we're using a backwards design model, we want to make sure that we are assessing students' abilities to demonstrate the learning objectives for the units. Since the learning objectives and our standards are performance-based, our assessments in EntreCultures are also going to be performance-based. First, you will see that each unit has 1 or 2 formative assessments called j'avance. Its components are performance-based and open-ended to allow students to demonstrate what they can do in the language. J'avance tasks are focused on proficiency and mirror tasks that students will complete on the AP exam, for example. They are not necessarily integrated tasks like those on the full IPAs or integrated performance assessments, the GREs we discussed earlier, but they still assess the 3 modes of communication in a cultural context. And EntreCultures offers additional formative assessments through Mon Progrès indicators. These can-do statements are interspersed throughout the unit to provide opportunities for students to check in on their progress. Though similar to the Necessful Actful can-do statements, these are written by the authors to align specifically with the unit goals and essential questions of each unit. They build in complexity along the proficiency continuum as students develop their language. There are also formative feedback single point rubrics that make grading the formative assessments easy and valuable for students. There are also a variety of holistic and analytic rubrics that are able to be used with any of the activities in our textbook or activities of your own. Now let's take a look at the summative assessment, or the GRIV. Each IPA, or Integrated Performance Assessment, begins with a prompt. In this case, students imagine that they're participating in an exchange program and will be hosting a French-speaking student for 3 weeks. The prompt is always set in a real-world cultural context to ensure that we're asking our students to complete tasks that mirror what they might one day need to do in the real world outside of class. You will notice that the essential questions are directly tied to the GRIV assessments. The performance assessment is completed through the integration of all 3 modes of communication. The interpretive task. First, students read, listen, and/or view a text that provides information related to the prompt. They process this information, which may be new, or they will activate prior knowledge. Next, they will speak with or write to a partner to exchange ideas and opinions in order to gain new perspectives. And last, students synthesize what they have learned and present new understandings by speaking, writing, or a combination of the two. Since this is an integrated performance assessment, it's important to have students complete all 3 sections, not just because they build on one another, but also because they assess the full range of what students can do with their skills in the 3 modes of communication. Rubrics are provided that match the assessment. Let's talk a little bit about our online platform, the Learning Site. First, we're going to look at one of the components, which is the flex text. The flex text is an ebook with all the same content as the textbook. You can search for words or topics using either English or the target language. You can also jump to a page you want to open the textbook to, as opposed to having to scroll and click. The green compass icon links you to the online resources for each activity, and you and the students can highlight and take notes in your text by using an annotation feature. PDF, the next part of the site that we're going to look at is the Explorer. Explorer is the main component of our online site. Here you will find PDF files that you are able to download. Students can also click and write on the spaces and save them directly to the PDF and then submit them back to the teacher. For tasks requiring a written response, students type in the text box just like a Word document, including embedded links and images. Note that there is a tool for adding accents and tildes, or if you're working on an Apple product, students can use the regular keystrokes. For tasks requiring an oral response, students have the option of making an audio recording or videotaping themselves. In this case, students participate in a simulated conversation and answer questions that they hear. There are also open-ended proficiency type activities that promote discussion and response. There are free response, audio recordings, video recordings that some of which need to be reviewed and graded by the teachers, and others that are corrected by the by the program itself. There is also a classroom forum as part of the EntreCultures textbooks. This is an online discussion board where students are able to give comments back and forth to each other, either written by audio or video. And teachers are also able to participate in this forum and add their own questions. There are also additional supplemental activities in the online Explorer course. These activities are outside of the textbook and can be given to students as additional practice as the teacher desires. And lastly, Explorer course has a file folder that's just for teachers. Teacher resources include assessment guidelines, answer keys, audio scripts, an authentic resource index, scope and sequence, and more. Lastly, I want to talk to you about the online digital portfolio. This is a portfolio where students can keep track of their progress with the can-do statements. They are able to rate themselves, and then upload evidence or write or record a reflection as to why they believe this rating is accurate. As a teacher, you can go in and leave comments and feedback as well. We know that you will love the Wayside Difference because when language teaching and learning is proficiency-oriented, learning is meaningful. By using backwards design, our products are goal-oriented and learning is intentional. We use authentic resources and focus on interculturality so students will experience language in a real-world context. Wayside encourages self-direction and internalized learning by providing students opportunities to learn the vocabulary and grammar in context and showing what they can do in the language. You will have the textbook and the company that you chose in this adoption for many years. We want you to know that Wayside is committed to you and to your students. We are here to provide support and professional development to you on your path to teaching for proficiency as well. We look forward to working with you. Thank you for taking the time to review EntreCultures today. If you have any questions or would like more information, please contact your account manager or email Wayside at info@waysidepublishing.com.